Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Etched Companion, your favorite Magic the Gathering Commander companion podcast. We're here today with I'm Ben and our constant co-host Nick.
aka Scruffy Tusks.
Mm-hmm. And today we have a special guest because we are doing an interview series, and our guest today is Jordan Raiber here. Say hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, I am Jordan.
Welcome.
I'm sure everybody will know exactly who you are as soon as they.
Only interview important people. So important people, you have to be important, right? Because you're getting interviewed.
Yeah, well, I feel very important.
So we'll give you some time here to actually introduce yourself. We'll be including today's topic because today's topic is a kind of a side tangent on Commander called a Dual Commander. It's a separate format that is very similar, and Jordan here is somewhat of an expert on the topic of that game, and he's got some words to say about it. So, Jordan, if you'd like to introduce yourself, give some credentials.
Geez, where should I begin? All right, so to start with myself, I played Commander a long time ago. I played multiplayer Commander right as Commander was very first coming out. I had, and I still own, like all of the original 2000 and I think it was 13, 2011, something like that. The very beginning of Commander, I had all of the decks, and I bought every deck for every single year because at the time they only did one set of decks. They did like 5 or 6 a year. And they did that once a year for like the first 6 years. That's what I did. I bought all of them. Loved playing it. I played with all my friends. I played with Ben actually a lot in high school. And I was very obsessed with it. Now, Commander hasn't historically had a lot of tournaments. More recently, they've developed the advent of like CEDH. So some of the very first tournaments that ever existed, going back to like 2013, there was a local in Akron, Ohio, game store that would play dual commander tournaments. And when I say dual commander, it was literally just multiplayer rules and ban list and everything, but just 2 players would play, 1 versus 1.
Huh.
And that went on for a while until eventually somebody had suggested, okay, this isn't exactly fair. There's clearly some huge imbalances, as you can kind of imagine, having 40 life. Certain colors like blue and green ended up being very, very powerful. Until somebody suggested, well, we should switch over to the dual commander ban list because the dual commander format is kind of what we're looking for. It's a competitive, more geared format where it's supposed to be more fair and balanced in a 1 versus 1 environment rather than multiplayer. So Dual Commander had already had its beginning before I first experienced it, but I still got in pretty early on. And at the time, this is
that it's
when...
Like,
yeah,
it's crazy that it's like it was all the way back from 2013. Like I think I was just getting into Magic at that point, and like I didn't even know Commander was a thing at that point. You know, I was still playing Standard essentially.
Yeah,
and I mean I saw people playing in like you mentioned Akron, Ohio. Like I was at the university there, and like people would play in like the student union and stuff, and it was just like
I played
everyone was
student,
playing.
Yeah,
everyone was playing like when I would see you, they were just playing Standard, but I missed the trade, I guess.
No, yeah, and well, I mean, like,
that's
and
crazy.
really,
That it went
Commander
that
had
far
been around
back,
for
though.
even a bunch of years before that. That was when like the very first decks were coming out. So Wizards of the Coast had already endorsed it so much that they were making Commander specific products.
Right. So it even happened. Like Commander was probably created years prior to that.
Yeah, years and years prior to that. I mean, it originally is called EDH, which comes from Elder Dragon Highlander, which is basically bunch of judges. To make a very, very long story short, the very short summary of it is that a bunch of judges played Highlander, and they wanted to modify it so that way everybody had like an Elder Dragon. And so there's the original Elder Dragons, like Nicol Bolas, I think, is one of them. You grabbed one of those as your commander, and you would have that off to the side, similar to like how Commander began. and so that's where like a lot of the beginnings come from.
Which not so fun play experiment, because we've done before in our play group, we've done like little experiments with playing different styles of decks, like budget decks, whatever groups where we did like a budget where you only do one color. All this,
Yeah,
I do not recommend trying to do the original like EDH decks, because those commanders it's
they're
just
awful.
a color pool. They're so
Yeah.
bad. It's
Yeah.
not worth playing any of them.
There was no synergy there. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but then again, like like you said, the color pool sometimes is like more important. I mean, yeah, if we got into like CEDH talk, a lot of times commanders just having more colors makes them more powerful. It's kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's cool. Yeah. So
Yeah,
just to clarify too, it's neat talking about the starts of Dual Commander and everything. I want to get a little bit more into you, but just that with that the Dual Commander format starting as like a necessity, because it's almost like a hodgepodge between standard and commander, because they were just like, we don't know how to make commander into a competitive format where it's like 4-player and multiplayer like this, because that isn't really a thing too much. So instead they were just like, let's just kind of smash it into like a standard game, but with commander style, I guess, with the decks that are commander.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like the French, they wanted to make it a thing. They really had a need for the competitive scene for whatever reason. It took off there, and so that's why originally Dual Commander was called French Commander to begin with. And there was actually a great effort while I was on the rules committee to make sure that we were always speaking in public, saying this is Dual Commander, not French Commander, like just to be consistent in our messaging, because it's like we don't want people to call it that. It's very important. Because we wanted to be worldwide, not just in France.
Yeah. Could I ask too, like a little bit more your background in MTG in general? Because like as coming from as a background personally, like just I started doing standard and stuff. Like, did you probably started out with standard, didn't you, or at least like modern or legacy or something?
Yeah,
60 card format, and then what got you
into started kitchen counter,
Yeah. Like what got you into like commander? Like how did you learn about that and stuff? Like, so you probably started out just someone taught you 60 card magic. Did you do like tournaments and stuff before that, and then you went into commander, or did you do?
Yeah, I had actually had some tournament experience with both. I don't remember if I had any experience with modern yet, but definitely with standard at the time. Like I first started with like kitchen counter, whatever you call it, where you're just playing with your friends and you're just like no more than 4 of one card, and that's like it. Like you could play basically anything. And I first started out like I literally printed like my very first deck like when I wanted to like see what I wanted, and the very first thing I printed, I was so obsessive over it. I spent hours and hours, and this was back when like there were probably like a third of what there are for cards today. So I started back in probably like 2011, like Mirrodin block about that time. And like there were so many cards, I could literally go through the whole database, go through every single blue card that existed, and I hand selected all of my favorite ones, and then I put 4 ofs and like printed out versions, and I played it. And looking back on it, it had like the craziest stuff. So I had Force of Wills, I had Time Walks in there, I had Ancestral Recall. Like the deck was completely broken and like not legal in anything. Like there was no way it'd ever be legal even for like vintage. It was like
that's like literally how we played too. We had like standard decks and stuff, and then we got into just like, oh, is anything limited? Like Ben, Zach at least. He would like net deck a bunch of cards, and like eventually just like he would come to our tables and just be like with the artifact like blue deck, just like, oh, turn 3 play Tinker or whatever. I have a Blightsteel Colossus now, and we're all just like, what?
It's really funny to hear you guys talk about these with like the differences between like me and you, Jordan. Even though we played in the same play group, we played for a long time together. It's you going through and looking at all those cards, like analyzing it to pick the best ones, all of this, versus like me is just, I've always been a like feels like player. Like that is just like 100% me. And I still remember the first deck that I ever got a win with was just Etched Champion and a bunch of equipments. And I still remember where I was, and it was just finally got that one win where no one could get rid of my Etched Champion. And it was so good.
Equipment buddies. My first deck was an equipment as well. It was like a starter deck I got from, I think it was the Scars of Mirrodin or something like that, and it was the Brass
Do you remember
Spire
what the first
one.
deck is that you played? I know the deck that I played because I borrowed a deck. Do you
remember?
I know the first Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It was a new Phyrexia starter deck, and with the blue guy on it. Okay. I don't remember his name. It was terrible.
Jin Kataxis, probably?
No.
Was that the Praetor from New Phyrexia?
No.
Yeah, that's the Praetor from...
But it wasn't Jin Kataxis, though. It was like a 6 cost. Like, it didn't do a whole lot. It wasn't very good, to be honest. But
okay.
That's yeah. I don't remember the first Magic deck I played. I remember the first Yu-Gi-Oh one I played because, like you, I borrowed it from someone. I remember. But what was the first one you played?
I borrowed a 3-color, which Infect deck from a buddy. Okay. So it was again around the Mirrodin block. So it was blue, green, black, and there were all these little infectors that it had, and it would proliferate after it got the damage in. And it had like some combat tricks, like getting trample and stuff like that. And my buddy let me borrow it so I'd have something to play when I was at the table and stuff.
So then getting into Commander stuff, how did you get into Commander?
How did I get into Commander? See, this is a good question. I'm not sure exactly what was the inspiration, other than like maybe we saw the decks, like the new decks that showed up in the store, and we're like, we gotta try this. And then for whatever reason, like just everybody, because we were doing like 4-player games of just like 60 cards. Yeah,
we do that too. We're just sitting around, or even like 5 or 6 of us all just sitting around and
yeah. But like once we got our hands on some Commander decks, it was like, oh well, it gets a little samey when you only have like 1 or 2 decks yourself, and everybody else also only has like 1 deck, and then you've got 4 ofs, and you play every day like 5-6 times a day. It ends up being the same cards played over and over and over again, and then you try changing your deck up and whatever, but it still isn't that much of a difference. Whereas Commander has always been the appeal of like, it's different every game, and there's always crazy cool outplays and stuff going on because they've got more life total to work with, and like some of the coolest cards in the game ever. So
yeah, that's most of what I remember from like high school, is just like playing Commander at the table. I really barely remember playing the 60 cards. I know we did for a little period, but like I can picture us at the lunch table and the band room, all that, playing Commander. I remember that so vividly, but anything else, not really.
Are you guys familiar with like the personality types for Magic the Gathering?
Right, so the Timmys, the Johnnies,
the Timmy, the Johnny, the Spikes.
Yeah.
So I think of myself as, and everybody's kind of like a combo. It was like originally just like kind of like a general idea as to like how Magic players are. I think I'm pretty spiky though. Like for me, winning has always been like the most fun part. I just want to win. I really have been like highly competitive. Like I will try to win, kind of like no matter what. I'll get the right cards. I don't want to compromise. I want the best. I want to win. Mm-hmm. So for me, like going to tournaments and getting into dual Commander was a very natural progression. Like when I played regular multiplayer Commander, I was playing like the spikiest cards you could possibly imagine. I wasn't playing the silly cards. I was down to like make people's time miserable. Like
if it gets you the W, you're down.
It was my time. I was the miserable one.
Yeah. So like like mana costs, like the average mana cost of a deck too, right? Like so like how like in now CEDH, like one of the most common things is to have like a very, very low curve. Yeah. I remember I did my curve, I did all the math on it, and the very first like Child of Alara, like trying to be hyper competitive Commander deck I was playing, and this is again back in like high school, so this is like 2013, was an average of like 1.2 with lands, without lands like 1.6 was my average mana cost, and it was like over 40 instants or something like that. So the deck was playing at instant speed with hyper low costs, and I would just grind people to death.
I just want you to know that this is like, I don't think Nick has never played against your Child of Alara deck, but Nick knows about your Child of Alara deck because I complained about it to this day.
Yeah, you play some good lands and and then you get rid of all the non-lands and suddenly you have a slight advantage.
It scarred me so much.
Yeah, and then if you still don't like the board state in like another 6-7 turns, you just wipe the board again.
Well, let's get more into the topic then. So with Dual Commander specifically, let's try to talk about some comparisons between Dual Commander and Commander. We've got let's go over key rule differences. I know there's the life total is different, right? You're at 20 instead of 40.
Yeah, so it's at 20 now, but it didn't start that way. It started actually with 30 life when I was playing it for the very first time.
Okay.
And then there was, at some point in time, a shift where they shifted down to 20 life. And actually, by the time... Oh, man, I'm trying to remember if I was part of the rule. I believe I was not part of the rules committee when they shifted down to 20 life at the time. But I do know the philosophy behind it, and they said it publicly, too. I mean, the reason is very obvious. Most Magic cards are printed with a balance expectation of 20 life total.
Right.
Yeah. So the biggest problem that was running around in Dual Commander was like, you got 30 life, blue and green can excel in having that little bit extra of buffer until they just completely take over a game. And so blue and green decks were completely dominating the format. Like, and it wasn't even close. Like, it was just absolutely nonsensical how much blue and green decks were just dominating.
It comes back to that idea of like, in 1v1 format, the 20 health, a lot of tempo does matter, and that's why aggressive decks aggro decks can actually thrive in that environment, because they can pressure life totals. And even when they get to the burnt out point, it's like, well, the blue player is already at like 2 life. They have to really think about like getting fatal. But yeah, if you have a higher life total like in Commander, you have so much more buffer, right? So,
and if you think as well, like, well, this is multiplayer versus one, but like, this is a big difference between the two formats. Like, if you want to be an aggro deck in multiplayer Commander, you have 120 life you have to rip through.
Yeah.
Which is 6 times what a card is normally supposed to be able to do, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, like, what are like some of the things that Dual Commander does that shores up that weakness, like that regular Commander would have in a 1v1 format, besides the life total thing?
Well, I mean, we could get into the nuance of the ban list, I suppose.
The ban list is probably the huge part of that.
Yeah, so you have to obviously adjust it for a 1v1 environment, because certain multiplayer cards, like, they printed a bunch of Commander specific cards, right?
Right.
And those are legal in Dual Commander unless they ban it. And the thing is like, a lot of them are designed with that expectation that you've got 120 life you're trying to rip through, not through 20 life. So when you've got a format like Dual Commander, all of a sudden, like, these really impressively powerful for aggro decks in Commander become incredibly viable when you only have 20 life you actually have to rip through. So, like, a good example of that might be something like maybe Edgar Markov, or something like that, where like it's just really aggro focused. Edgar Markov obviously offering like a lot of extra vampires, and then so it's just a ton of extra bodies, where if somebody's got a 40 life total, it's perhaps problematic, but not to the point where it's gonna like be that bad or oppressive.
But then when your life total is 20, it's gonna kill you real quick.
Yeah. You cast 3 vampires by turn 2, all 1-drops, and you've got 6. And next turn you could do like I don't know, some kind of buff spell or something. Like, there's a whole bunch of different things you could do, and you're just about swinging for game.
I know a difference too with the format, with it being 1v1 versus 4 players. Something Nick likes to talk about a lot too is the tempo. So Nick, coming from playing standard, tempo is a big thing in 1v1 formats because you can affect it a lot more. The bar is a lot like, thinner. I don't know exactly how to say it, but you could affect the bar a lot more when it's just you versus one person, because you're not competing against 4 other people for tempo. So
right, being able to get that land drop over somebody and being able to play first over somebody is a lot more impactful than being able to play first over like 3 people, I guess, in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, like Wasteland is one of the banned cards in Dual Commander,
Yeah.
and that's because like getting rid of somebody's land in Commander. I
It's
mean,
one
sure,
person's
you got
land,
rid of one
not
land, like what they
yeah.
do.
What
You get
about the
rid of
other two?
yeah, but you
Yeah,
get rid of somebody's land in 1v1 like that can be such a huge tempo play.
Yeah. I think to compare formats, like I think Dual Commander might be somewhat comparable in feel a little bit to like Legacy. Legacy has had that before where like you go land pass and then the person goes, all right, I go second, wasteland, your only land, pass. And that's their turn one play. And it's like, okay.
wow.
So we're starting over. And the goal of that is like if you know what you're doing and you've got wasteland, but you kept like a couple of extra other lands, you're hoping
Right.
that your opponent was greedy and they only kept like a 1 or 2 lander. Maybe they'll get screwed.
You're trying to read their hand essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you when you kept that hand, you were already expecting I'm gonna lose one of my lands, but your opponent doesn't necessarily have that knowledge or expectation.
That's cool. And so like what's like we could talk about like the unique appeal, sorry, of Dual Commander. Like what like got you into it? What made it so like cuz if you joined the rules committee for it, so I assume you really enjoyed the
I
format,
was
or
going
at least the
really
idea of it.
far out of my way because okay, so they did the tournaments in Akron for a
Okay.
while, and
Yeah.
that store eventually closed down. Um, and there was basically no other place local that was doing like a competitive commander environment, which is what I really enjoyed. I really liked the 1 versus 1. Not even necessarily 1 versus 1, but the competitive nature of just like a commander format.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had a lot of experience with it, so I wanted to just do it. And I felt like in many ways also like a big fish in a little pond, if that makes any sense. At the time, this is like before there was really even like such a thing as like net decking. So this is before people could like. I mean, there was an amount of that for things like standard, but definitely not for something like commander, where you would just like literally copy somebody else's deck list for commander. That would be like unheard of. Like, why would you do that? You just build your own thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like there was a lot of skill expression I felt like in that, and I don't know. I went really far out of my way. I traveled quite a distance. I traveled, I think, out towards Toledo, is where I met another member of the rules committee, or the member that was the only member in the whole United States, actually, for the rules committee for Dual Commander.
Oh, that's cool.
And he thought I was so passionate about it, and I was, working so hard on it, and like I had driven so far out of my way, and I was clearly putting a lot of effort into the game itself. Like maybe you would be a good fit as like an advocate to help organize tournaments and stuff like that, because that was my original purpose on the committee. I was a supposed to be like a regional coordinator, so I'd like hopefully be able to offer information about if there are any tournaments and maybe even try to get some started.
Yeah, work with game stores or whatever to see if they want to host anything, all that.
Yeah. And to be fair, most game stores are very welcoming. They're just like, if you can get people to fire a tournament, we'll do it.
Yeah.
The hardest part was always getting people into the format. So what I would do is I would actually have like multiple decks. I would have 2 or 3 or 4 decks that are already ready made, and then I would say, "Hey, you want to play a game?" And then hand somebody a deck, and then we would 1v1, and then we'd swap the decks, and then do the other side of it, and so on and so forth.
It's actually fun. That's a little like a thing you can sneak into, like you can be at card stores playing on like their commander day, and you're like, oh no, we have uneven pods. Would you rather play a 6-person game or?
It's like you don't want to sit here for a 4-hour slugfest, do you?
Yeah. But yeah, so like he introduced me to the rules committee. I talked to some people, and they were just like, sure, yeah. I mean, there's no hurt in it. So yeah, I was not a like core voting member. I think they actually kept the number of voting members actually very low. But they've got a lot of regional coordinators today that were doing basically the same thing that I was doing.
Very cool.
It did give me access to a lot of the information, because they still would like to hear my opinion and the opinion of other people that are regional coordinators about like what's going on in your area and stuff like that. And even if I couldn't vote, like there was a thought process and stuff that was shared with me, and that was pretty cool. I liked my experience on the committee.
I remember you talking about some stuff where you were just like in conversations with like a lot of the stuff that was happening, whether it was like you were even like, talking in them or not. It was still like neat to see the process and like what people were pulling to, what they were using to decide on these votes and everything, like with personal experience or whatever. Cause it's a unique, like, this is again, like kind of pre CEDH where like you don't have that competitive side to it ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have commander's ban list and everything with like the commander list is all of the bans have always felt just weird or off because it's not a competitive format, so the bans aren't there for competitiveness, which is normally what bans exist for. So that's always felt weird in that discussion. So it was always interesting to see like this is like one of the first ones in commander that was like talking about the game of commander as a competitive format and how those discussions went for banning cards, because I'm sure they were very different from what was happening with the actual or the rules committee of commander too, because it's just
and the rules committee has shared their philosophy as to why they would make certain decisions. They've said that publicly for both dual commander and multiplayer commander. It's interesting to kind of notice the differences if you ever go back and you can read some of the public statements that both sides have said, and it's definitely different. Like it's definitely been like a different philosophy for like we're a casual format, so we are going to probably do more of a hands-off approach, less is more type of situation. I think a lot of people have probably heard about this philosophy and had their own arguments about what's going on with multiplayer commander. But dual commander, we were, very in tune and very much trying to fully understand the whole format before deciding not to or to ban something. There's some cool stuff with it.
Were you more extreme on the case of like banning things? Like the rules committee was more happy to ban things as they just saw fit?
I don't know if I would say happier to ban things. It was like, well, so my philosophy on banning has sort of changed quite a bit over the time. There's like a lot of different perspectives, and this is like a whole thing. Like we could talk about like, is a card a problem if it's simply in a lot of decks, right? So there's such a thing as like a staple of a format, cards that get played a lot. But if a card gets played a lot, does that necessarily mean that it's a problem? I would say no. In my personal opinion, I would say like if a card exists and it's in a lot of decks, that doesn't inherently make it a problem. I think you have to do a bit of an analysis of like, what is the card doing while it's in all of these decks? Is it in all of these decks because it fills like a very simple role that a lot of decks just need, and it happens to be one of the better versions of it? So like cantrips, for example, is a good example of this, right? So you've got like your brainstorm, ponder, preordain, all of these. And okay, so a lot of decks like to run brainstorm. Is brainstorm a problem because it just gets play in a lot of blue decks? Well, not necessarily. But if you've got a card,
it's kind of more like a blip on the radar. It's a good it's a nice thing to look at and to like maybe consider looking into why that card is showing up more often, but it's not necessarily an indicator that this card is too broken, right?
Right.
It's not just a straight up reason to be like, all right, it's played in every deck, ban it. Yeah.
Well, when the card comes and hits the table, because this is the thing, you're playing commander, so you're only going to run into the card, once every few games or so. Does it completely warp that game, right? Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question. And is it actually so game warping that this one card demands that other people run cards specifically to stop that one card? Because now you're getting so degenerate where everybody's running that card as well as the counters to that card, that it's stifling deck building creativity.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I think I have an example for this too, and like looking at the bans list, because I was like analyzing those a little bit before this, and there's a key difference in them where Soul Ring is something that is banned in Dual Commander, which is think very clearly, I don't think we need to discuss it too much. That is a game warping card. If it comes out, it is going to change the game for one person or the other.
Especially in a 1v1.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the ban list, like a lot of fast mana.
Yeah,
right?
A lot of fast mana. But something that's not on there, that's on like the multiplayer commander playlist or the ban list, is Golos Tireless Pilgrim, which is like one of those that it does kind of stifle creative play, because you can have, like, if you want a 5-color commander, it's like prime choice. You can have whatever cards you want in there and just play Golos for it. But it's not, like you were saying, it's not game warping. Like, it's there, it's good, but it's not like competitively amazing. It's not going to change the game every time it enters the board. Right. Or whatever.
Every deck isn't going to start running counters to Golos, like, you know, because it doesn't really
yeah, but then let's say if you look at something like Ragavan, right? Is Ragavan I haven't looked actually in a little while. I gotta double check here.
It is not banned from Commander, but I don't know about dual.
I gotta double check the dual commander ban list. Sorry, I've been
I am on it right now.
It is. It's banned entirely.
Banned, yeah.
So So Ragavan was hugely meta warping. I still remember this because I was still it was because I was still paying attention to Dual Commander at the time when it came out, and like it just completely shapes a game, because if you can rip the top card of an opponent's library, so now you're getting card advantage in like multiplayer commander. It's often compared to like a Birds of Paradise, because it gives you an extra mana, and then it also like kind of gives you a card draw too, which is true. It's great in multiplayer commander. In 1v1, it is so oppressive, because let's say you go first, you got a Ragavan down, and if you can protect it and get the hits in, like starting on turn 2, you've got an extra mana, like and you're getting them for 2 damage every turn, and you're getting to steal a card off of the top of their deck, which you have to understand contextually. Multiplayer commander one for ones aren't quite as popular because you've got 3 opponents, right? So unless you're able to, from a card advantage perspective, at least do a minimum of a 3 for 1, you're actually doing a net negative, because you're down 1 card. The person that you 1 for 1 is also down a card if you have spot removal, but the other 2 players didn't lose anything. So you're actually, both you and that other player are now behind the other 2 guys, which is why a lot of times board wipes become really popular in multiplayer commander. In 1v1 commander, though, like having that 1 for 1 type of situation where you can trade is huge. So card advantage is king in 1v1 dual commander, and Ragavan just warps that because it gives you an extra card draw every single turn.
And while pinging them also.
Pinging them for 2, while giving you an extra mana.
Yeah.
For 1 mana to begin with. Like it was just crazy good. Obviously, I mean, the card ended up being banned in, I think, Legacy and Modern, right? I haven't paid that close attention to them. See now?
Yeah, I haven't really played Modern in a hot minute, so.
But yeah, it was just a crazy powerful card. These are the types of things that you wanted to look out for in any sort of like philosophy of ban list, is like something that's like game warping, where like it itself is already causing a lot of problems, and then other people are building around it, where they're like, I gotta have a turn 1 play for the Ragavan player because I know I'm gonna run into him. And so, like, sure, Ragavan is like 12% of the meta or something like that, and you can discuss whether or not that's too much or too little or whatever. But the thing that really sets it over the top, at least in my opinion, as to why it belongs on the ban list, is everything after that, where like in the context of the format, it's just a problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like the reasoning behind it, like there's differences between the 2 formats, and one of those major things is it's a competitive format versus not a competitive format. But Ragavan actually doesn't even, it's not like even really in consideration for it just being banned because it's like a too good of a card. Like it's not too good in multiplayer commander. It's good. It's not too good. Not, whereas in this 1v1, it's just too good. So that's more of a like format reason for banning it, less of a like competitive ban, which is just an interesting topic with all this. Like the ban list, like it'd be fun to just do a deep dive into the ban list differences, I think, too, because there's probably so many of those where there's different reasons for all of it. And it's nice. They do have a website here for Dual Commander that's just mtgdc.info.
Yeah.
Where they've got everything.
They finally
listed.
got their new, I don't know if I want to even say new website, but they didn't have a website for a long time, or the old person who had the website wasn't actually associated with the rules committee, but he would also update the website to whatever the rules committee, and so it functioned, but it wasn't like part of them, and so it was like, we got to have our own website, and so they got it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been looking at it today, and it's very informative with everything they've got on there, and it's nice to look through.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a with this game. There's so much info on there, and it's cool to see that they're actually so I don't know, just so informative with their decisions, like you were saying. Like, not only were they talking about the stuff in the discussions you were having while on the committee, but they're also coming up with like reasons for the bans and everything like that, and trying to be very open and honest about what's going on in the format.
Yeah, nice. I mean, they're not paid or anything. They're just people that really just had a passion for Magic the Gathering, and specifically this format, and they wanted to do it right. And they clearly, I think, have done actually a really great job.
Yeah. Do you think it's been a very successful format so far, like as much as you've played it?
Yeah, I mean, it ended up not being very popular here in the United States. It's rather unfortunate, but other parts of the world, they've got very healthy, as far as I know anyways, they always had very healthy like local communities that played Dual Commander, and like entire countries. It would be very popular. They'd have huge tournaments with like literally hundreds of players would show up for it. You know,
that'd be cool. Dang.
Yeah, like the equivalent
US is missing out. What the heck?
Yeah. We ended up, well, there's still always been that drive of like in multiplayer Commander, that drive, like, this is what I started with too, to just play the very best cards and play to win as much as possible in a multiplayer format, even in the multiplayer Commander. And that's where like CEDH kind of spawned. It ended up just being a natural progression, which I could talk to you all day about, like the philosophy of not making a separate ban list for competitive Commander CEDH. Because like that, I know in the CDH community ended up being like a huge thing, because they didn't want to cause a splinter. Because what you can do, this is the idea anyways, you could create a whole separate ban list that is specifically for competitive Commander, just competitive multiplayer Commander, that's more geared towards being more healthy of a format. But the problem that you'll always run into is that there's just going to be people that want to play Commander, regular multiplayer casual Commander, but they just want to play it, at the highest possible level they can. And it often starts with just like an arms race. Like and this is what happened to me and my friend group. We played together, and like one of us would get a little bit better cards. They would upgrade their deck a little bit, and then everybody else would be like, well, I don't want to lose to this guy. This guy's ridiculous. Screw this guy. We're going to get better cards too. And then you'd modify it and improve upon it. And not necessarily even more expensive cards, but you'd be refining it. You'd be looking into how do I deal with this problem better? And you have this sort of evolution.
Yeah, it just keeps getting...
Yeah.
Just keeps going, yeah.
That's before we really even there's now there's all these discussions like we've talked about before with like play groups, and like just how there's it's a very understood kind of science now with like playing with play groups and how play groups evolve and all that. Whereas when we were playing it back in the day, that, I mean, at least I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff, and I don't think there was a lot of info out there about like, oh yeah, this is how you should this is healthy ways to play with like your the play group you're playing with in Commander.
Yeah,
this is
how to rule zero. Yeah, it's mostly it was like yell at each other until you come to some kind of understanding.
Yell at each other. There was some cheating that went on that was just like, oh no, it's not cheating. I don't know what you're talking about. It's always fun.
Yeah, that's where you run into like other play groups, and you sit down at the table and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't play with Soul Ring, or oh yeah, by the way, we've got this as our own like personal group like band thing, or this particular rule that's like unique to us. And oh my gosh, that just reminds me, like the whole thing of like these ban lists, you can try to do them on like it's a worldwide thing, but entire countries will have different metas. And so like you'll have cards that are like a problem, and you'll have people that are like, this needs to be banned. This is a huge issue here. Like this is not acceptable for like Dual Commander. This is not acceptable for whatever. But then you talk to somebody from like a different part of the world, like Russia, and they're just like, haven't had any issues with it. It doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. Actually, when people play it, it doesn't really do much for us. So, and that's entirely like contextual of your like local metas.
That's so interesting because like, yeah, Magic doesn't really have a regional like ban list. They just kind of do like a ban list and that's it.
Yeah, for the whole format.
Yeah, yep. That's interesting. Like I always knew like Yu-Gi-Oh does that where they actually have regional ones. Like there's a TCG and OCG list, and but I always thought that was kind of weird that we had different ban lists. But I guess it makes sense because like it just depends on the meta, right? What people actually enjoy playing in the certain regions, like can actually change how you'd want to make a ban list. That's interesting.
Yeah. Depends. There's something to be said for that. There's also something to be said where if the meta is different in those places, do you really need to like ban cards? I'd say almost says it's a healthy format. If you have different things being dominant in different regions, that tells you like it's better.
Oh, maybe it's a good indicator.
And that's the thing is like in many ways, Magic is never solved because of that, right? It can be solved for a local meta solved, I say, you know what I mean? But like it can almost in many ways never be solved because if you're familiar with like the aggro mid-range control kind of dynamic, right, where it's almost like a rock paper scissors, where if you're just one tier slower, like a little bit slower than a deck, you're going to inevitably be able to beat them out. But if you've got something that's a lot faster than your deck, it'll crush you. So like you've got a local meta where it's just like there's a ton of aggro decks. Now all of a sudden the guy who shows up with a mid-range deck, I mean again this is kind of to simplify things, now he's kind of like top dog. So does that mean that the mid-range cards that he has in his deck, like maybe one of them, like one of the powerhouses is one of the cards that needs to go because his deck is so strong in this meta? No. It doesn't mean that card has to go. It could be just that that's a local meta issue, and
someone needs to adjust and adapt. Yeah,
and yeah, I mean to even kind of go back to my roots, like that local game store that I traveled to. That's actually what they ended up doing. Is my understanding is that they stopped playing with the regular dual commander ban list and they actually came up with their own store ban list because they disagreed with it, which was kind of funny.
All right. So, what are some challenges of like, like for being on the committee? What were challenges that you faced for dealing with like balance and like community feedback and everything there too? Because with this being a small community and with it being a competitive format, I'm sure there was plenty of very opinionated people that did not have their eyes on the conversations that were happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people inevitably, just are very opinionated, especially since like most of the feedback we got, well, that I got was online because again, there weren't a whole lot of Americans that I was listening to. So I would see the discussions, and I think that was probably like one of the most challenging things is like trying to think like, how am I going to appease everybody, especially when, like I said earlier, you've got these like micro ecosystems or whatever you want to call it, like these little areas, these little pockets with different metas, and people have totally different ideas of the way that they think that dual commander needs to go, and some are very informed opinions and some are very not too. So keeping everybody happy is probably the biggest challenge, and the truth is you can't keep everybody happy. And you can use data. There's a lot of data to work with, but at the end of the day, there has to be some semblance of like rationale and working through the logic of it, of why you're banning or not banning stuff. Because if you ban a card too, you also have to consider like that was somebody's deck, and if it was their commander, they might get totally put off from dual commander and never want to play again. You know what I mean? And especially if you're doing bans very frequently and often or something like that, then you're running into an issue where people don't feel safe in even buying new cards for the format.
Right. Yeah, because they have no idea if they're going to invest in a card that they can't even play in a month. Yeah.
Yeah, and being a smaller format, that's one of your challenges as well, is trying to get more people to play. So the more things you ban, like you're worried about, that's going to be one of the top of your priorities is to not stop people from playing. So you're trying to get more people to play.
Yeah, and then if you don't ban something, then you could be in the other situation where somebody has such a terrible experience. They're like, this format is dead. It's horrible to play. I had such a terrible experience where I just ran into the same Ragavan 6 times or whatever, and I got red deck wind like over and over again, and I had no fun.
Yeah. Was there ever a really like hard decision you had to make for like a certain vote or something? Or
I did not. I was not a voting member. I was allowed to offer my opinion on stuff, and the voting members they would come to their own vote. They would do polls and stuff though, I think, and people would vote on that. So I did voted in that sense, even though it wasn't like an official or final vote in any sense. But um,
was there a specific card or a band that you
yeah.
really wanted or didn't want?
So this is a long time ago. So there was I believe it was a Raibo or Arabo. Can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. Let me go back up and double check to see.
Oh, is this one of the first Eminence
Yeah,
ones?
there it is. Yeah. This is the one where you could give a cat. Yeah, the Arabo Roar of the World ended up being banned as a commander. So I had this Eminence ability. Eminence being like from the combat zone, it still has an effect. And it says at the beginning of your turn, if it's in the command zone or on the battlefield, another target cat you control gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
Wow.
So this deck, you had to run cats. It was like cat and like mid range to aggro kind of side of things. And um, I my initial reaction was just like, this isn't can't be that bad because it's just cat is a pretty niche creature type. There's not like that many powerhouses that are cats. So like
Yeah, it's
how
like the
bad could it
chances of
really
you
be?
like running into this is probably kind of low, and if you do run into it, like okay, it's given at +3. Like
+3/+3, right? So like
just draw the out.
yeah. So like and then like okay, let's say like they do give one of their cats +3/+3, but then you
Yeah.
you spot remove it or something like that. Because again, spot removals are very popular in Dual Commander.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that much of an issue. But what I kept seeing was in practice, it actually was quite oppressive, and there were ways to make it really really get through. People were running like the white protection cards, as crazy as that sounds, so they could get through. And there's actually a decent number of cats too. I think there's a couple of cats with lifelink and swinging like a 2/2 that gets +3/+3. Now you've got a swing of 5 life. That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
um, it was one of those things where like eventually I was like, yeah, I guess it's got to go, but it was a feels bad moment.
Yeah. I could see
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because like sometimes you just underestimate the power of just having a really buffed up creature early on enough in a game, especially in a 1v1 format. I think like obviously in multiplayer commander that's probably not even
Yeah,
nearly or remotely an issue, but like in a
yeah,
1v1 format with only 20 life, like 5 life is a lot. It's 20% of your life. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Giving giant growth basically
yeah.
every single turn without paying any mana. It's from the command zone.
Yeah.
yeah. Which is interesting too, because I feel like a lot of Eminence, like get scared of a lot of Eminence because of the fact that it's always doing something, whereas this one's only doing something if you have like a
A
cat,
cat.
like you have to have a cat out. So it's like, see,
Yeah,
if it doesn't seem that scary. But then, yeah, I guess in practice, when you have that low of life and everything with it, it really changes it because it's something that come from a background of playing standard, you wouldn't be scared of it at first because you're not used to just the command zone kind of being a thing. But then when you have that low life total in the command zone, giant growth at every turn, that just changes all of it. Just it's kind of like a perfect storm there. It's cool.
So did you learn anything like on the
oh.
committee as being a committee member? Did you learn that you might want to like did you enjoy doing it? Do you want to do it again or did you
Be like a rules committee member.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I would say probably not though. Because it ends up being just a lot of very tedious work. And the thing is like I had a lot of stuff going on, and so I couldn't always be as active as I needed to be to correctly do the rules committee. It requires a very dedicated group of people. So like
It's like a second full-time job, but
yeah,
you're not getting paid for it.
And the thing is like you really shouldn't or can't, to be doing your job appropriately, take a break. Which is the thing, is like everybody's kind of had this experience with Magic the Gathering, I think anyways, where they go through like highs and lows, where like there's times where you just aren't feeling it that much. So maybe a couple of months or a few months you don't go to that many tournaments. Maybe you only go to like one or two. Well, if you're on the rules committee and you're doing that, you can't now give a very informed opinion about how to correctly, do your job for the rules committee.
You have to be locked in like all the time.
Yeah. For potentially years. I mean, like who knows how long you could be on it. So, but things that I learned so much. The biggest thing I think was like thinking about the game, from especially by other people that were on the rules committee, because they're so smart, and a lot of them would like they had like way longer, even more experience than I did ever with the game. And so when they would analyze a lot of stuff, they would offer these insights that I'd never even considered before. So like one of the things too to consider is like, what is a commander? Commander is kind of like an extra card. So really when you begin the game, you're starting really in commander with 8 cards in your starting hand rather than just 7. But then you have to consider, okay, how about something that has like partner? Okay, now you actually have a 9th card. Okay, and then if you have a companion, okay, now you've got 10 cards in your starting hand. And you think, okay, so even if the cards aren't that great for card quality, now you've got just so many, you could be hugely advantageous over somebody else, especially if somebody's got, let's say, a very high cost commander, right? And yours is very low cost. Now you're not just talking about tempo, you're talking about huge swings in card advantage. And so, like, to me, like tempo, we were talking about earlier, and getting underneath and speed was just like such a big part of what like I learned about Commander in general, and maybe even Magic the Gathering in general. Like it's really really big.
That actually adds a follow-up question for me that I wanted to ask, because I'm a big fan of like the tempo aspect of the game and how being able to like have that pacing, but also how do you I was wondering about the solution to going last in Commander multiplayer, because how is that really such like a burden, do you think, and do you think there's a good way to circumvent that?
Statistically speaking, I guess it kind of is, right? It is the lowest win rate seat at multiplayer tables. I don't really know of an easy way to resolve it. You could.
Do you think that seeding of being last would favor like maybe a more like lower cost commander then in that case? Which you can't even really account for because you're just rolling
you don't know if you're going
to
to be in that one. Yeah.
But do you think that would
I've heard ideas thrown around, like giving everybody like a treasure, basically. Like if you're not going first, or if you're going last or something like that, you get 1 treasure. So it's not like a full extra land drop, because that's really the tempo that you're behind. I think especially in multiplayer, like the competitive side of multiplayer Commander, like 4th seat, it loses a lot. And I think, to me, a big part of that is especially like turn 2, because turn 2 is a really, really big turn. A lot of stuff happens. People try to go for the win on turn 2. Like it's a very, very fast format. And if you are last seat, you might only have 1 land down. You only have 1 land down when player 1, 2, or 3 tries to win.
They could go for the win.
Yeah. And so that hugely limits your turn 1 plays, because your turn 1 play, you like literally like can't tap your land when you need to in order to just get down like a Soul Ring or whatever, anything on turn 1.
So that turn that does actually kind of translate into multiplayer Commander as well in a way. Like it depends on the form or the level, the power level, I would say, definitely. But like that's interesting because normally like when we think of like multiplayer Commander, we don't think of tempo as much, but I guess that is one aspect to it that just kind of bleed over.
I'm just saying, for a great solution, just play more white cards. The white cards are the ones that just do better when you're behind. So just if you're going last often, if you suck at rolling dice and you always get lower dice,
Grace, right? Like they can't
win.
win.
No, hold on. Wait, hold on. I'm talking about the good white cards. I don't know, the ones that you play that will say only if you're behind. Did you just say that with a straight
It's not
face?
Angel's Mercy.
Oh,
Stop
sorry.
Stop it. Stop leaving on me. Angel's Grace.
Sorry, you're right. Angel's Grace is a fantastic card. You're right. You're
yes.
right. I was thinking of
Split
Angel's
second,
Mercy,
your
one of the
opponents
best
can't
cards
win
in the game.
You can't lose the game.
Yeah,
1 mana.
All right, now that we knowledge checked Ben's vocabulary and magic, his
no, there's another card that sounds very similar. That's been a meme in our group.
Jordan specifically hates the card Angel's Mercy with a dying fiery passion. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's fair.
So sick of opening that card. I wish they would stop printing it forever. The fact that they ever printed it makes me mad, and the fact that it kept getting reprinted in my beloved Magic the Gathering sets actually tilted me to no end.
but yeah, I'm talking more. There's a lot of cards in White that are like, if somebody has more lands than you, if somebody has more creatures than you, do something. So those cards are the ones that it's like they're helpful. This is not an actual real solution for being last. You are still losing tempo on that, especially at a competitive level. But it is something more fun. If you are going last all the time, try playing more White decks that give you the opportunity to do things when people are behind, because it will help you. And then you'll start rolling well and never be behind, and they'll be useless, because that's how it goes. So yeah.
Why would you give up your advantage of being at a disadvantage? Right.
Exactly. You get to pick, so you just say pick last every game. It's new strat. But
Ben's pocket pick of the day. Play more White cards.
I'm gonna start implementing just nobody gets to draw on their first turn except for the person going last.
Okay. All right, but speaking of strategies, do you have a favorite strategy when you were playing your dual commander? Did you have anything? Was this spoke about Child? Was that a dual commander deck, or that was a multiplayer?
I did play it in dual commander. I did actually. Okay. That was I did actually play that in dual commander, but it didn't end up being, I think, my favorite. Mostly because of how grindy the deck is, and I needed to finish the games because you only have an hour to finish your 3 games. But I mean, it was a 5 mana 6/6 beater with trample. You know what I mean? So it wasn't terrible, but no, probably what I really enjoyed of all things was a very combo-tastic Azami Lady of Scrolls Wizard Tribal. Because I love drawing cards. That has kind of always been a favorite of mine. Even more than winning the game. If I can draw more cards, I will be so happy.
What's your favorite quote? Drawing a card is the most powerful text in Magic.
It is. This is the most powerful text on a Magic the Gathering card. It says draw another card.
Even though there are cards that have text that say you win the game, you're saying that that's not the most powerful.
Oh, obviously not. No, not even close.
No. Just being able to draw more Magic cards.
Because the next card you draw could say win the game. Think about that.
Or it could say draw another Magic card.
Or it could even draw you another Magic card. Exactly. You guys familiar with the bread model or anything like that? Or that's deck building for a draft or something like that, but or my deck tickled a sliver. Have you heard this one before?
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it's just a way to remember my deck tickled a sliver, mana, draw, threats, answers, synergies. And so it's a very base idea for how to build a commander deck. Mana and draw being the 2 most important things. And I intuitively, or maybe through experience, I learned that concept very, very early on when I played Commander. And to me, that's one of the biggest things ever. It shaped my whole perspective of the format. If I could get card advantage, especially in our play group, because being able to reset the table with a Child of Alar or something like that now asks the question, who has the most cards, who has the most lands, right? What are you going to do now, right?
Who has the most cards and who can play the most of them.
And when I had a average mana cost that was very low of 1.6 without lands, and I had a bunch of cards in hand because I had a bunch of draw power, it ended up being quite potent.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that kind of stuff more later on. We're going to be doing an episode about deck building later too, because that's something that I've been laughing this whole time because something we learned very differently. You learned that so early on. I've learned that very recently. I am such a Timmy player that I'm like synergies are like my goat. Like I love playing so many synergies. Every card works together. And I've only recently been able to be like, all right, no, that's not how you build a deck. So we'll get into that stuff later.
I gotta hit my land drops. I don't want to have one card in hand, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh, it's turn 6. Somebody played a board wipe. I'm top decking now. I guess I'm over. I'm done.
Yeah, those are such feels bad moments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any piece of advice or takeaway for dual commander players or even commander players that are thinking about playing dual commander?
Play a lot. I think like the more you play, the more you'll get a feel for a lot of it, and do not be afraid to move away from a very standard deck list. A lot of those pocket picks end up totally crushing and catching people off guard. So like people have a lot of pet cards that they love. I say run them, you know, and have fun with it. So that's my advice.
Yeah.
Very cool. I also want to just bring up too what you were talking about before, how you're like bringing multiple decks is a great way to get people involved, because like some people with the different ban lists, you don't like taking out cards, doing all this. If you have the decks ready, you're just like, here, let's just play. Like it's a nice thing to do. So that's a great way to get into these formats.
Yeah. And then if they stomp the whole table, they can't, nobody can flame them. They'll be like, hey, they handed me this deck.
And in that case, the whole table is just you, because it's 1v1. So they're just stopping you back.
Even when I lose, I win because it's my deck. All right, my brilliant mind foresaw this when I was building it at 3 a.m. You know, this exact situation.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, awesome. Thank you for joining us, Jordan. It has been
thank you.
Great interviewing you. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a fun episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate talking about Dual Commander. This is such a unique format, and it's cool to see like the age of it. And I really hope that it gets more people playing it like now, because
I guess that means we got to schedule a Dual Commander night now.
I'm absolutely down. When are we doing it? We're doing it on Twitch if we're doing it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So
I'm down.
Yeah.
We'll do a little gauntlet, little mini tournament, right? We'll do the little brackets. It'll be great.
Yeah. I'm down. Very cool.
Alrighty. So that wraps up this episode. So we'll probably get into more specific about like deck building and like deck card choices and reasons why you should choose certain cards and reasons why you might not choose others. That's probably going to be our next few topics going into the future for this podcast. So stay tuned for that. I am Nick Scruffy Tusks, and I'm signing out.
And I'm Ben Waitlid, and thank you, Jordan, once again for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. See you guys.